are joining us, and that'll be fine if they join us all along. But I want to welcome everyone, and I want to thank everyone. What we're assembling to do is a significant thing. Every 4 years, a district at least is charged with getting together and forming a local planning committee, and that's what you guys comprise, and we'll do some introductions in a moment. So we have a local planning committee, and that local planning committee is tasked with the process of crafting a district facility plan, and we'll let our architects kind of give us some more details when it comes to that. But I'm just going to do some introductions. I really appreciate your all's willingness to serve on this, and I think you'll find it rewarding. It's really interesting. Kind of you get to learn a lot more about the district and be an integral part in planning some of our facility needs moving forward. One of the things that we may do is, and I don't have control of the screen. I believe that maybe Clint, do you have control of that? And then also Dusty, are you guys kind of in charge of that? Is there and there may be something I need to hit. Is there a view to where we can have everybody up there? Is that something specific to my machine, or is that something that you all control?
Let's see here. I have it set on gallery.
Okay, very good. And I see it looks like that's what I'm seeing now. So, but kind of what I'd like to do is I'll call off everyone's name as kind of, I'm calling this meeting to order, and I'll call everyone's name as a means for, and we'll let everyone introduce themselves and kind of what their role is, whether they're a parent or a council member or whatever it is. And so I'm Corey Keith. I'm the superintendent of McCreary County Schools, and I'm a non-voting member. The superintendent is a member of the committee, but a non-voting member when it comes to the decision making. So kind of going through, Christina Hollis, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Christina Hollis. I'm a parent, and I sit on the. I'm also on the parent advisory for the McCreary County Central Youth Service Center.
Thank you, Christina. Emily Ross.
I don't think she's with us, Mr. Keith.
Thank you. Okay, and if you could kind of look at that for me, Clint, I'd appreciate it. Tara Trammell.
Yes, I'm Tara Trammell. I'm a PTO member at Pinot, and I'm also on the site base.
Thank you, Tara. Andrea Spradlin.
I'm Andrea Spradlin. I am a parent, but I also student teach at Whitley Elementary.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Tim Friels.
Tim is with us.
Okay, I believe we can come back to Tim. Tim is with us. He's a teacher at the high school, I know. Miss Joy Waters.
Miss Waters, I think your mic is muted.
Can you all not read my lips?
You said
sorry.
I'm be here.
We're doing parent conferences too, so I'm fiddling with buttons, but I've turned the other one off. I'm a teacher at McCreary County Middle School, and I also am on the site-based committee.
Very good. Thank you, Joy. And Joy, you're right. At this time in the pandemic, it looks like that we would all be very adept at lip reading with all these meetings. Miss Michelle Shepard.
Hi, everybody. I'm a teacher at Pinot Elementary.
Thank you, Michelle. Tim Stevens. And Tim may not have joined us yet. Miss Sharon Privet.
Hello, I'm Sharon Privet. I'm principal at McCreary Central High School.
Thank you, ma'am. Miss Susan Tucker.
Hello, I am Susan Tucker. I am principal of McCreary County Middle School.
Thank you, Miss Tucker. Shane King.
Hello, I'm Shane King. I'm assistant principal at Pine Knot Elementary School.
Thank you, Shane. And I see Tim with us now. Tim, would you introduce yourself, please?
Do you want Tim Friels or Tim Stevens?
I'm sorry, Tim Stevens had popped up, but I'll hear from either of you or both of you. Okay, I think we'll go on and we'll hear from you gentlemen in a little bit. Mr. Eric Corder.
Hello, I'm Eric Corder. I'm the assistant principal at Whitley Elementary.
Thank you, sir. Clint Taylor.
I'm Clint Taylor. I'm the director of pupil personnel and I'm over facilities.
Thank you, Clint. Is Jennifer Daugherty on here?
I don't think she is, Mr. Keith.
I've not seen her yet, so but that's okay. Mr. Stephen McKinney, has Stephen joined us?
No, I don't think he has either.
Okay. I think we've also got Miss Lori Foster on here.
Yes, Lori Foster. I'm a school board member and a parent.
Thank you, Lori. And Brandon Troxel. Brandon, are you on here?
I don't think Brandon's logged in either, Mr. Keith.
Okay, so as others come in, we'll certainly welcome them, and this is our introductory meeting, and so this is kind of a way for us to introduce everyone and also to take roll. We also have a couple of guests that I want to introduce or let them speak to us. Miss Kelly Mercick, would you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Keith. Good evening, Kelly Mercick with Baird. Happy to be here, and we help the school district with the bonding component. So we act as your fiscal agent and will provide a report for what bonding sources you have available to pay for debt service on capital projects.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly, and we look forward to hearing from you here in a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Keith.
Ms. Lauren King is the district's chief financial officer. So, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren King, and I'll be working alongside Kelly for all things financial related to the facilities planning.
Very good. And thank you, Lauren. And Randy, I know we're going to hear from you for a good part of the meeting, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, sir. I'm Randy Brookshire. I'm principal at Ross Tarn Architects, and we've been fortunate enough to have worked with the district on several projects, and as well as this KFIX and DFP, which, as Mr. Keith alluded to, I'll be presenting some additional information later on in the meeting and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Very good. I see that our Deputy Judge Executive, Nathan Nevels, is logged on. Nathan, you want to speak to us for a moment? I believe you're on mute.
Yeah, it's my first time using Microsoft Teams. I'm trying to find the buttons and everything.
No worries.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Huge fan of McCreary County Schools.
Well, so Nathan has the unique perspective of county government and having been an educator in McCreary County Schools for a number of years, and so we're glad that he's a part of this process. Anyone that has logged on since I began sort of our informal roll call here, anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to introduce themselves?
Tim Stevens.
Hey, Mr. Tim.
Hey.
And Tim, you're on here as a teacher from Whitley City Elementary.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Well, very good. Well, friends, kind of what this first meeting is an introductory meeting, and we'll be learning a whole lot about this process tonight. Just quickly through the agenda so you kind of get a feel of where we're going. In a moment here, you guys will select your chair and vice chair of the local planning committee. After that, we'll hand it over to Randy Brookshire from Ross Tarrant, and he will lead us through what a local planning committee and the district facilities plan is. We'll watch a video that's mandatory from the Kentucky Department of Education that will give us some additional information. Kelly Mersick from R.W. Baird will then give us a financial report so that we can kind of know what our monies look like in terms of bonding potential for the district. Then we'll turn it back over to Randy for our architect and engineering assessment. There'll be a review of our current plan, and then we'll set our next meeting and we'll kind of talk about what that looks like. And so the first thing I would do is just open it up, and there's really not a formal process here. Is there someone who would be interested, or would someone like to nominate another member to be the chair of our local planning committee? And you can nominate someone, or if you'd like to volunteer, I think either one is perfectly fine.
Mr. Keith, I'll volunteer if no one wants to step up to do it. I've done this before and don't care to do so if they would like to have me.
Okay. Very good. Well, so Ms. Privet has stepped up. Would anyone like to second her nomination?
I'll second the nomination.
Okay, I have no idea who that was, but we'll make something up when it comes to the minutes. So,
That was Tim Frills.
okay, thank you, Mr. Frills.
You're
So we
welcome.
have a second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Okay.
Aye.
So it sounds like a majority to me. So Ms. Privet, you are the chair of our local planning committee, and I will hand it over to you for the selection of the vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. Do we have anyone who's interested in serving as the vice chair, or anyone who would like to make a nomination at this time?
Ms. Privet, if no one wants to do that, I don't mind to do that. I'll help in any capacity possible for the local planning committee.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We have a nomination from Mr. Clint Taylor to serve as the vice chair. Do we have a second on that from the committee, please?
I will second that.
Was that you, Susie?
Yes, that was me. I will second for him to be vice chair.
Okay, thank you. We now have a second on the motion. May you please indicate your support of that by expressing aye?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. I'll now turn this back over to you, Mr. Keith.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Privet, and congratulations, Ms. Privet as chair, and Clint Taylor will be vice chair. And so the next part of this will roll into an explanation of the local planning committee and the district facility plan. And so Randy Brookshire, architect with Ross Torrent, is going to give us the lowdown on that. So Randy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. As Mr. Keith already has said, you all are the local planning committee, the LPC. And what we're here to do is create a DFP, which is a district facility plan. Mr. Keith already mentioned that a district is required by KDE to create a new district facility plan or update their existing district facility plan every 4 years. Your all's last one was dated 2017, so here we are in 2021, 4 years later, updating and drafting a new one. It's important because it kind of sets the stage and determines the course of facilities for the next not only 4 years, but possibly even further into the future. You all will meet tonight's orientation meeting. We will watch a short video. It's about 30 minutes long. James Bauman, who is a project architect at the Kentucky Department of Facilities Management Division, actually presents the information. And there is a lot of good information in there about the history of the DFP process and the details of how all that works. But basically, the LPC will help determine and shape the district facility plan. We'll have a couple of few meetings to do so, and then we'll actually send that draft version once we've kind of created that to district facilities of KDE for their review. Your all specific project architect, project manager is actually Marcus Highland. He will be the one to review that information, and he'll provide comments and feedback back to the LPC. We'll convene again and review those comments, incorporate those comments into the draft version again, if you all are in agreement with those comments. And then we'll actually formally, this group will take a vote on that to move it forward to, then it goes to the Board of Education. And if the Board of Education is in agreement with the DFP as it's presented to them, they'll move forward with a public hearing and then sending it on to the State Board of Education, which is actually the KBE. So that in a nutshell is kind of the process. Again, you all are integral in creating the draft version based on the information that's going to be presented from KD Facilities, our architect and engineering team that we've gone through and reviewed each of the facilities, as well as Baird, who will be presenting the financial information that you all have available with regards to various funding sources and what your all's current bonding potential is. So any questions about that process? Sounds like a few of you have been through this process before, so you kind of know what to expect. If there are no comments or questions, I think Clint has actually got the video queued up for us to view. Again, it's about 30 minutes long. It has a lot of good information. It explains the process very well, and it is required for actual viewing by KDE. So Clint, you got that?
Yep. Give me one moment.
No problem.
Facility Planning Manual, 702. Welcome to the Local Planning Committee Initial Orientation Session. This session will provide a general overview of the planning process, consisting of a short history of the legal basis of the planning process, changes due to statutory and regulatory revisions, facility evaluations, and funding types for facility construction. Tonight's agenda will include the following topics: the facilities branch mission statement, overview and history, outcomes and facilities best practices, equity utilizing RS means pricing data, adequacy utilizing KDE model programs, a step-by-step DFP process examination, and the architect engineer evaluation, district facility qualifications, building inventories, drawings, and finally, funding. The district facilities branch's mission is to assist each Kentucky school district to wisely assess their facility needs and to help direct their planning efforts to create a learning environment which fosters equity and adequacy to help each student in the Commonwealth reach proficiency. The planning process is rooted in the 1990 Rose decision, which led to the Kentucky Education Reform Act, which set in place a process to provide greater local school governance and to foster greater equity and adequacy in school facilities and funding. Article 183 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Kentucky states that the General Assembly shall, by appropriate legislation, provide for an efficient system of common schools throughout the state. Article 10 of the Rose decision describes this efficient system. The essential and minimal characteristics of an efficient system of common schools may be summarized as follows. The establishment, maintenance, and funding of common schools in Kentucky is the sole responsibility of the General Assembly. Common schools shall be free to all. Common schools shall be available to all Kentucky children. Common schools shall be substantially uniform throughout the state. Common schools shall provide equal educational opportunities to all Kentucky children, regardless of place of residence or economic circumstances. Common schools shall be monitored by the General Assembly to assure that they are operated with no waste, no duplication, no mismanagement, and with no political influence. The premise for the existence of common schools is that all children in Kentucky have a constitutional right to an adequate education. The General Assembly shall provide funding which is sufficient to provide each child in Kentucky an adequate education. An adequate education is one which has as its goal the development of the 7 capacities recited previously. The district facilities planning process history. Prior to 1994, the planning process was undertaken by the Department of Education with subcontracted architectural and engineering services. District facility plans were developed by the Kentucky Department of Education and submitted to local districts. In 1994, the Kentucky Schools Facility Planning Manual, 702 KAR 1:001, was developed. School districts shall develop a local facility plan once every 4 years. Local planning committees were seated to develop the DFPs. The State Board of Education shall approve the facility plan submitted by the district upon the recommendation of the Chief State School Officer. Between 1994 and 2004, KDE's primary role was to review the process, advise districts during the DFP's development, and conduct public hearings. These roles are still current, although we no longer conduct hearings. In 2004, the planning manual was revised to change the focus of KDE's role. It added an educational component with a required LPC orientation and established an outcome review with demographic information, school condition, and program information as the determining factors in justification of new buildings, additions, and renovations. In 2006, the School Facilities Task Force was established to review all aspects of the planning and construction process. By 2008, revisions took place so that the LPC selection was more greatly defined and verification required. LPC and AE info to the KDE prior to orientation part 2 for review and comment. The major renovation definition was revised to allow roofs and HVAC systems after 15 years, life safety and ADA renovations as single systems. A maintenance director was added to the local planning committee, and planning outcomes and requirements were more precisely defined. Facility planning outcomes. How does the planning effort positively affect student performance? Thermal comfort, heating, cooling, and ventilation. Adequate technology for now and in the future. How do decisions made on these schools affect the long-term financial picture of the district? Do the plans for this school address all of the problems identified, or are they simply a piecemeal solution? Is there a short or a long-term focus? When complete, how will the school compare to other schools within the district, the region, and the Commonwealth? All schools should exhibit the following characteristics. 90% of district facilities shall be in good to new condition. A current facility plan that accurately reflects district needs shall be in place. All buildings shall be 100% accessible to the non-ambulatory handicapped. All buildings shall meet technology goals for voice, video, and data. No portable classrooms shall be in use. If portables are used, a plan for removal should be part of the plan. Adequate maintenance staff, about 1 per building, and funding for maintenance and operations equal to about 3 to 7% of the total general fund budget. Quality custodial services shall be provided. Provide appropriate staffing at about 1 per every 20,000 square feet. Control the resource supplies to each school. Buildings and grounds shall be clean, safe, and well-maintained. An effective preventative maintenance program and a well-managed work order system shall be in place. Provide professional development and resources for maintenance and custodial staff. A district-wide energy management system shall be in place. Equity. The act.
Sorry about that. That was not expected.
Application of common principles of fair dealing. The RS Means Price Guide is a nationwide construction cost database. KDE uses this price guide as a guide to construction costs for facilities around the state. These prices are updated yearly and are used as a guide for facilities statewide. You will notice that this is the 2014 guide. The 2018 guide is now available online. Adequacy, equal to a given requirement or occasion, sufficient, suitable for purpose. This is a standard school model program effective statewide. Note the line item for locally identified programs, which allows districts leeway for a special program. In this case, perhaps a science classroom or a particular program desired by staff. Note also how the size and thus cost per pupil declines with increasing school size. Similar model programs exist for all school facilities, both educational and for district support. Adherence to the model programs as established by 702 KAR 4180 ensure an efficient, substantially uniform, adequate, and equitable system of common schools throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The next slides graphically show the components and some schematic designs for a 300-student elementary school. These are the building blocks as defined by the model program and identified on the previous slide. This is an efficient layout, but note that not all classrooms, the squares in yellow, have exterior windows. This is a common layout that provides good separation for primary and intermediate students. This is a layout that provides separation for primary and intermediate students, as well as a media center commons. The commons concept is becoming more popular in school design. The district facility plan format, district information. The district shall provide the following information at the top of their plan. The plan of organization, the current district organization plan of student grades, the proposed or long-range district organization plan. The district should have a single organizational plan for all students in order to equalize educational opportunity. That is to say, all students should go to the same type of school, whether primary and intermediate or a standard elementary going from 1 to 5 or 6. They should not be going to 2 different kinds of schools within the same district. A variance may be allowed where verification can be provided to the KDE that the student body's ability to achieve is not compromised. Each existing school educational facility should be listed with the name, the grades presently housed, the center designation, permanent, functional, or transitional, the building's enrollment, and student capacity. The district facility plan format priorities. Capital construction priority construction projects include the most critical building needs of the district, are listed in priority order as determined by the LPC, and the most critical building needs are given the highest priority. As an example, classroom spaces needed to meet current and future enrollment would be a higher priority than the replacement of a bus garage. Projects to be included under priority items are drawn from the KFIX facility audit and are very specific and should account for the realities of district financial capabilities. Projects in priorities 1 through 4 are eligible for restricted funding. District facility plan priorities. New construction, additions, and major renovations are based on a quantified student need compared to model program requirements or unsuitable building conditions. New facilities are based on demographic projections, unsuitable conditions of existing facilities, or existing capacity versus a planned future enrollment. Major renovation, as defined in 702 KAR 4180, is a building over 30 years old, not having been renovated in that time, and replacement of at least 3 building systems. There are exceptions. Roofs and HVAC systems over 15 years old, life safety systems, and ADA modifications are eligible for restricted funding, meeting those requirements, and do not have to have 2 other building systems included in the work scope. Initial information gathering and analysis. The local planning committee has an option to select a facilitator that will guide them through the process, will manage the meetings and the public hearing process. They are required to select an architectural engineering consultant who will evaluate the physical condition of the existing buildings, who will assess the buildings for their suitability. Does the facility provide the program spaces required by the model program? Will assess additional district needs and provide general architect and engineering input. Facility condition and suitability are part of the KFIX process. Information gathering and analysis. Collect information using current and new resources. The architectural engineering consultant can evaluate and assess the facilities and integrate them into the KFIX database. KFIX, the Kentucky Facility Inventory and Classification System, will provide an updatable database of facility condition, suitability, and priority ranking for all educational facilities. Student assessment, comprehensive school improvement plan, and district report cards. Educational programs, financial information based on Munis as well as your financial advisor. Include the district information in a narrative report, and from the various information sources, the LPC develops a draft district facilities plan. The LPC will hold a series of meetings to develop the district facility plan. There must be a minimum of 3, 7 days apart. A quorum must be present at each. A quorum is defined as 1 plus 50% of the LPC membership. The LPC solicits public comments through informal public forums. Again, a minimum of 3, 7 days apart. All meetings and forums are subject to the Open Meetings Act. The first LPC meeting is advertised 7 days prior to the event. A subsequent meeting must have 24-hour notice. Forums may be scheduled just before or after LPC meetings and must be advertised 7 days prior to the event. Development and review. The LPC develops the draft DFP. The LPC approves the draft DFP and sends to the Kentucky Department of Education for review. We review the draft facility plan. The document is evaluated. Each building is reviewed against the KDE model program. Costs are reviewed against the RS means costs. Demographic trends are reviewed. The DFP is sent back to the LPC with KDE comments. Is the work in the proper priority? Does the facility with any new additions and renovations conform to the KDE model program? Is the work consistent with demographic trends? KDE returns the district facility plan to the local planning committee with a reviewed plan and written comments outlining any changes and why they occur. The LPC votes on the reviewed draft DFP, and remember, a quorum must be present. The LPC submits the approved DFP to the local Board of Education. If KDE review comments are not incorporated, KDE may recommend disapproval of the DFP to the Kentucky Board of Education. If approved by a board vote, the local board begins the public hearing process. If rejected by a board vote, the local board returns the draft DFP back to the LPC for revision and resubmission to KDE and the local board. The accepted draft DFP is reviewed in a local public hearing. The LPC must advertise the local public hearing at least 14 days prior to the hearing. KDE will send a hearing packet to the district to assist in the process. Copies of the draft DFP should be placed for public review in several community locations, such as the local board office and district schools. A sign-in sheet, recorder, and public address system should be available at the hearing. The hearing is conducted by a hearing officer. The hearing report from the KDE template and final district facility plan are submitted to the local board for final review and approval. The local Board of Education must vote to accept or reject the hearing officer's report and the plan. If accepted, the plan is forwarded to KDE and on to the Kentucky Board of Education for review and approval. If rejected, the DFP is sent back to the LPC with a letter of explanation for revision and a resubmission to the local Board of Education and KDE. State Board review. This final approved proposed plan is submitted to the Kentucky Board of Education. The State Board meets every other month, starting in February, in the first week of that month. All work shall be complete and approved 45 calendar days in advance to get on the Board of Agenda. Thus, for approval at the February meeting, all work shall be complete and be approved before Christmas. The DFPs are discussed by the State Board, and the District Facilities Branch answers questions proposed by the board members concerning the individual plans. Following the meeting, the local board is notified of KBE's decision. Approved plans go into effect for the next 4 years. Rejected plans are returned to the local board for review with the LPC. District facility plans formats priorities for educational projects to begin within the biennium. 1A, new construction to meet student capacity, further implementation of established programs, or to complete approved projects constructed in phases. 1B, new construction to replace inadequate spaces, expand existing or new buildings for educational purposes, consolidate schools, or replace deteriorated facilities. 1C, major renovation of educational facilities, including construction of additions or expansions, kitchens, renovations, cafeterias, libraries, administrative areas, auditoriums, and gymnasiums. Additions shall be clearly listed by number, space, type, and size of proposed added space. 1D, CARA strands, preschool, school-based decision-making office and conference, family resource rooms. 1E, renovation to upgrade all existing facilities to meet the most current life safety requirements of the Kentucky Building Code. 1F, renovation to upgrade all existing facilities to meet the most current handicapped accessibility requirements of the Kentucky Building Code. Note that 1E and 1F, as discussed previously, are single system exceptions to the major renovation rule. They can be done singularly rather than in combination with other scopes of work. The priority 2 priorities are essentially the priority 1 repeated. They're just not scheduled within the biennium. For other projects, regardless of schedule, 3, construction of non-educational additions or expansions, including kitchens, cafeterias, administrative areas, auditoriums, and gymnasiums. 4, management support areas, construction, acquisition, or renovation of central offices, bus garages, or central stores. 5, discretionary construction projects. This section shall list projects by school or building as classified below. The local district opting not to proceed in SFCC funding may request all priority projects to be listed in this section. Renovations and additions that do not meet the requirements of 702 KAR 4180. That would be buildings that are under 30 years old or on any other system that does not qualify. Functional centers, improvements by new construction or renovation. These would not be educational or district maintenance buildings. Finally, extracurricular facilities, constructions of field houses, stadiums, sports field facilities, or any facility with an estimated cost of $25,000 or more. Funding for students. Funding for school construction. The funds that are available for the construction of schools in the Commonwealth are divided into two categories: unrestricted funds and restricted funds. The Chief State School Officer, through the Kentucky Department of Education District Facilities Branch, must approve funding on all projects. The unrestricted funds include general fund monies that are determined by the SEEK funding program. These funds are used for staff and teacher salaries, transportation, maintenance, athletics, and other school programs. The district can only use a portion of general fund money for school construction. The restricted funds are those monies that can only be used for school capital or major construction and for no other purpose. All of these funding sources need to be considered during the district facilities planning process. Restricted funds used for capital construction or major renovation come from multiple sources and include student population, SEEK funds, capital outlay funds, property assessment-based, FSPK, building funds and growth levies, Facilities Support Program of Kentucky, qualified needs-based, SFCC, the Kentucky School Facilities Construction Commission, urgent needs grants. Student population-based funding. The Support Education Excellence in Kentucky, SEEK, funding program is a formula-driven allocation of state-provided funds to local school districts. The formula includes funding for transportation costs and special needs students as reported by districts. Under this funding program, districts are allocated funds based on their average daily attendance, or ADA. This formula is used to calculate several of the funding sources listed herein. Capital outlay funds are included in the SEEK formula. These are calculated at $100 multiplied by a district's average daily attendance. These monies can be used for direct construction costs. Since these funds are yearly generated funds, they can be used to pay for direct debt on bonds that can be issued on behalf of the local district. 80% of the total funds calculated can be used for debt service. These funds can only be used on priority projects and can be selected in any order desired, subject to the approval of the district facilities branch. Property assessment-based funding, local building funds. 5 cents of every $100 of a local government's property tax revenues is granted to the local school district to pay for capital construction projects. This money may be saved and used directly, or since it is a yearly generated sum, it can be used to pay the debt on bonds that can be issued on the behalf of local school districts. This is sometimes called the local nickel. These funds can only be used on priority projects and can be selected by the LEA in any order desired, subject to the approval of the district facility branch. Facility Support Program of Kentucky, FSPK. Funds are included in the SEEK formula. These funds are used to equalize funding for districts with low property assessments as a percentage of their average daily attendance. These funds can only be used on priority projects and can be selected by the LEA in any order desired, subject to the approval of the district facilities branch. Property assessment-based funding, growth district local funds. In addition to the local nickel, certain districts, which met established criteria in assessments and average daily attendance, are allowed to increase their local taxing effort by 5 cents per $100 to pay for capital construction projects. This money may be saved and used directly, or since it is a yearly generated sum, it can be used to pay the debt on bonds that can be issued on behalf of local school districts. This is sometimes called the growth nickel. These funds can only be used on priority projects that relate to the needs established because of district student growth and can be selected by the LEA in any order desired, subject to the approval of the district facilities branch. Please note that although remaining in statute, the legislature is presently not funding growth nickels. The Kentucky School Facilities Construction Commission funds. The KSFCC is a separate state agency that provides funding to districts based on the unmet facility need as identified in the district facilities planning process. Funding for this program is requested from the General Assembly by the Commission every 2 years. The unmet need is calculated during the DFP process. The unmet need of all the districts in the state is combined to create a state unmet need. A portion of the total is funded by the General Assembly, and each district is allocated money based on their percentage share of the total fund. These funds can only be used on priority projects based on their priority order. For example, all Priority 1 projects shall be completed prior to funding any Priority 2 projects with SFCC funds. All projects within a numbered category, i.e. 1A through 1D, are considered equivalent and can be selected by the LEA in any order desired, subject to the approval of the Division of Facilities Management. Qualified need-based funding, urgent needs grants. In the 2002 legislative session, the General Assembly voted to provide urgent needs grants to 15 school districts to replace schools that were listed as Category 5, very poor condition, had not had significant renovation in the building's life, had a student population that exceeded SFCC minimum requirements, and were in districts that could not reasonably afford to replace the schools. These monies were granted to the districts for bonding to replace the Category 5 buildings with new schools. Urgent needs funding is based on the 2010 and 11 KFIX Parsons project assessments. These assessments are now being superseded by the 2017-18 KFIX Amoresco assessments. These funds can only be used on specific projects identified by the state legislature for the use of these funds, subject to the approval of the district facilities branch. This concludes the Part 1 presentation. Part 2 of the presentation will be provided upon the completion of the AE facility assessment and will amplify the DFP process and funding mechanism as set out in this presentation. Thank you for your time this evening. The planning process is vitally important to the district. A complete, thorough, and accurate assessment of district facilities will ensure the district will provide the best environment for students and staff at a cost the district can bear.
Okay, I think we're back to our normal screen. So, Mr. Brookshire.
Yeah, so just to wrap that presentation up, hopefully everybody took copious notes, I'm sure. Again, there was a lot of information. That is a video that Katie has published, and every district, every LPC for every district in the state is required to watch that. It offers a really good history of the DFP process and the funding sources, as well as the process. The video number 2 that James was referring to is being produced right now by Katie E. And that actually is not a video, it's a presentation, excuse me. But Marcus Highland, the KDE facilities representative that is over your all's district, is putting that information together. It will be much more district specific with regards to demographics, student population, as well as some additional interesting information about your all's delivery of services to students within the district. So I think that wraps that up. Are there any questions about that video, the overall process from anybody? If not, I think I'll turn it over to whoever would like to introduce Kelly, or Kelly can take it away.
Sure, I'll segue, Randy, and I appreciate that. Kelly is with R.W. Baird, and she is our fiscal agent, and she can explain all that she does much better than I could. But she keeps a close eye on our bonding potential to make sure that we know what we're able to expend as a district, and also when it comes to bond purchases and so on, they will be very involved in all that and facilitate that. So she does a great job, and I look forward to this presentation. Kelly, it's all you.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. Can I get a thumbs up to make sure everyone can hear me okay? Thank you, sir. Clint, is my presentation will be shared, or do I need to share my screen?
You probably need to share your screen. I've set the meeting up where everyone would have access.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to check that out. I think it's coming up in just a second.
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you for confirming. Mr. Keith did a great job setting up the meeting because the LPC is a very important process, and it's until you go through one, you don't realize all that gets involved to talk about facilities. And thank you for the lead-in, Randy, and the KDE video. I've seen that a few times, but every time I see it, I feel like I pick up something different. So bonding capacity is a fancy way for saying borrowing capacity. It's not much different if you were to go to your bank and see kind of what mortgage you qualify for. The school district is not like Amazon or Apple. If they need to address facilities and pay for a capital project that exceeds the cash they want to pay, they have to issue bonds, where an Amazon might issue stock, the school district has to issue bonds. So I'm going to move to the next slide. In the video outlined this very well, that there's certain money that can only be used for bonding capacity. And some of it comes from the local taxpayer and some of it comes from the state. And we call these funds that are available for bonding capacity restricted funds. And they're based on a local nickel, what we call local nickel, which is a 5 cents tax that is required by that Kentucky Education Reform Act of 1990. The Facility Support Program of Kentucky is what's called FSPK. That is the state's mechanism for equalizing districts based on per child. They're not wanting funding to be based on just a wealth of a school district. They're wanting it to be based on how many children are in your district, and that state component makes up any difference that the state needs to equalize your nickel. Capital outlay, it's actually in statute, and it's from 1954, the formula. It's $100 per ADA, so that's based on your attendance number. You can use 80% for debt service payments. And then we look at whatever money's not used for, you have to put in these restricted buckets to look at bonding capacity. We just look at it as general fund. Obviously, there's some other federal fund, but for simplicity purposes, we just say the remaining funds are available for the general fund. You also get some money from the state in the form of school facilities construction offers of assistance. This meeting is important because what offers they give you is based on what's on your facility plan, an unmet need. So for instance, a district might have bonding potential of, let's say, $10 million, but on their district facility plan, they show need of $50 million. Their unmet need would be $40 million, and that would be taken in consideration on your offers of assistance. SFCC offers are made every 2 years, so your next offer will come available in January of 2022. It will be available for paying debt service beginning in July of 2023. Looking at all the funds that we identified, like we said, some of them are based on the tax base, some are based on your ADA. So capital outlay, the simplest of them all, it's $100 times your ADA, and you can use 80% of that. So the math on that is there's $195,000, a little over that, available for debt service. The local nickel, every school district in the state, all 171 have what's called a local FSPK nickel. It's required to receive SEEK funds or facilities or SFCC offers of assistance. Your local nickel is 5 cents, 0.05 cents divided by 100 times your assessment. So there's $290,000 that's in that restricted bucket from your local nickel. Your state FSPK equalization, which is the state to make up any difference based on your ADA, is $828,000. So if we total all of the restricted funds available for bonding, there's a little over $1.3 million. Right now, you do have an SFCC offer of assistance that can be used on priority 1 or priority 2 projects on your district facility plan. The current offer is $15,000, $824. That is available for 20 years. So when we look at your bonding capacity, we add the restricted funds that's available from the district and any offers of assistance. So currently, total funds available for debt service is $1,330,000. Before you can take on any new debt service payments, you have to pay your existing debt service. Right now, there's 6 bond issues outstanding for various purposes. Some of them are refinancing, and a refinancing is simply when you have, just like a mortgage, if you have a rate that's higher than the current interest rate environment, you can refinance them and lower the interest rate. There is usually typically a what's called a call date, a period where you cannot refinance them. So for instance, looking at your 2016 bond issue, you agreed to pay your debt service until May 1 of 2026 before you're able to refinance that without a penalty. So you have 6 bond issues outstanding. The principal outstanding on current debt is about $18.4 million. Most of your bond, a lot of your debt service on the next page will show you the payment schedule. Here identifies the payments that are on the outstanding bond issue. You can see your final debt service payment on your current bonds are in 2039. But a lot of your debt in the gray column, you can see for the next couple years, you're paying about $1 million, a little over $1 million in debt service. Then it drops off to about $660,000 for several years and continues to drop off thereafter with your final payment on your existing bonds of 2039. Looking at the middle columns, these are what we talked about are the revenue associated with the existing debt service. We have the local nickel, the local funds plus the SFCC offers of assistance. Totaling those again is the $1,330,000. So if you look in the gold column, it's the difference between what you have available, your total funds available, less your debt service you are paying. The gold column is what we use to calculate bonding potential or bonding capacity. When you take on new debt service payments, they have to fit in this gold column or else you cannot afford them according to KDE. So finance plans for KDE. KDE requires us, when you do a project, to submit a plan of finance that says your project, if you're taking bonds out on it, will fit within this revenue constraint listed. And I apologize, 1 second, another phone. I apologize, I'm in my office and another computer started ringing. Sorry about that. On page 5, here is the graphical of your debt service payments. So you're paying a little over $1 million for the next 2 years, then your debt service drops off to $660,000 and thereafter. If we fill that white area to all new debt service payments and fill it with new bonding potential, today we'd say your bonding capacity is $7.8 million. It's important to note that bonding capacity changes every day. So when we give you a bonding capacity number, that is bonding capacity as of today. Interest rates change bonding capacity, other nickels. So right now, there's the option of nickels called the recallable nickels or alternative nickels. You guys only have one nickel, like all districts have to have that base nickel. The Facility Support Program of Kentucky, every 2 years during the budget cycle, the state gets a new equalization rate. So you might get more funding every 2 years based on that equalization. Some districts have looked at leveraging more than 80% capital outlay. I think that's a slippery slope because that's a formula based on ADA. So if a school district is experiencing declining enrollment, bonding over 80% might be pushing the limit. That's why KDE's stands to use only 80% in case enrollment fluctuations. We work with some districts that have looked at leveraging their general fund to pay debt service for certain projects. There's also, like we talked about, future SFCC offers of assistance. You should get a new offer this coming January. Retiring old debt, if you pay off a bond issue, for instance, in the next 2 years, your all's debt drops off, then bonding potential will pick up. We've estimated that if nothing change, if interest rates stay relatively the same for the next couple years, when you pay off those higher payments drop off, your bonding potential could go to $12 to $14 million, depending on interest rates. There's also, as Mr. Keith noted, we looked at refunding existing issues. There's no opportunities right now, but we're keeping our eye on that. So that's always ways to increase your bonding potential. There's other factors like ADA. If ADA goes up or down, that can drive the bonding potential. There's also interest rate fluctuations. Interest rates play a big part in what your bonding capacity can do, how far your dollar stretches, as everyone knows. In the last about month, we've seen interest rates go up significantly. In this purple box, we've included some what we call sensitivity analysis on your bonding capacity. So just talking about ADA, if 100 students were to decrease the ADA by 100 students, capacity becomes around 6 million. And right now, interest rates are still very low, even though we saw them jump relatively quickly over the last month. You're still borrowing at about 2 to 2.5%. If interest rates go just at 3.5%, bonding capacity drops by $2 million. So like we said, bonding capacity is just a snapshot today. As your fiscal agent, it's our responsibility to keep Mr. Keith and Ms. King apprised of any changes of bonding potential and anything we're hearing at KDE. The legislative session, a lot of things change, and it's our responsibility to make sure you'll have informed so you can make decisions based on what capacity you have. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions on bonding capacity. And thank you all very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and work with you all.
Kelly, I do have a brief question, and you did a very nice job of laying it all out. But where the loss of 100 students would hurt our bonding capacity by about 1.8 million, the inverse is true as well, correct? As we increase our average daily attendance, we could increase that potential as well, correct?
Yes, Mr. Keith, that's a great point. If it goes up your capacity, it might not be a dollar for dollar exchange, but it's realistic to say if you picked up 100 students, and it might be more, just depending on, because you think about it affects both the ADA and the FSPK nickel, how much you get on those. But I think that's probably a pretty good estimate that if you got 100 students, you'd pick up about the same amount of capacity.
Thank you. Were there any other questions for Kelly?
And I apologize for the phone ringing. I do not know where that was coming from. My husband's laptop was sitting down here, so I'm very sorry. I apologize. He'll be hearing about it here shortly.
Well, it's take it easy on him. It didn't bother me.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know how to turn it off, so I just shut it. So hopefully, but thank you all. We're so excited to work with you guys, and I can't wait to meet Lauren in person. So thank you all again for having me.
Thank you, Kelly.
So if there aren't any further questions, the next point of our agenda is, I believe Randy is going to lead us through the assessments of our facilities, which have occurred in the past throughout, and we've spent some time updating those as well. And so Randy, without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to you to walk us through our facility assessments.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Keith. And I'm sharing my screen. Is everybody able to see my screen? It should be a PowerPoint presentation that has Ross Tarn up in the left-hand corner and says McCreary County Schools KFIX Facility Assessments, March 2020.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay, as Mr. Keith said, we have both the engineering and architecturally, we have walked through each of your all's facilities. This was actually done, I believe, in 2019. KD rolled KFIX out in 2017. Every district was required to do one facility their first year, and then as they were able to, they added facilities, and KD is using the facility planning process as a tool to get each district to update their KFIX information. So the KFIX stands for the Kentucky Facilities Inventory and Classification System. And basically, there are three different pieces that go into this assessment. 75% of the information is actually the asset planner, which that is the process of assessing existing conditions, architecturally, MEP, site issues. 20% is actually the space planner, which is identifying program deficiencies based on your all's existing facilities, what types of spaces they have relative to the KDE model program. I don't know if you caught that in the presentation, but KDE does have a model program for every facility, elementary school, middle school, high school, variations thereof, as well as other support facilities like bus garages, central storage facilities, and central offices. And then 5% is actually based on the CEPTED and the site survey, which is a survey that the owner fills out and actually school administrators fill out for each of the facilities based on their current conditions. So the asset audit elements, each of these is evaluated. There's exterior elements, and I'm not going to go through each of them, but it's basically the building envelope of the entire building. Interior, walls, fixtures, doors, finishes, flooring, site elements like roadways, parking, pedestrian pavements, sidewalks, and then there's also MEP elements related to plumbing, electrical, HVAC, elevators, conveying systems, fire protection, and then site mechanical as far as utilities go. And each of these, you'll notice, has a year associated with it as far as a life cycle expectancy. For instance, I'm looking here at just hot water boilers here in the middle of the page. And just noting that it has a 30-year life expectancy for a boiler. So when we get into some of these, you'll note that some of these systems are being noted because they've reached their life expectancy. That does not necessarily mean that they're not functioning properly or that they're in poor condition, because with proper maintenance and good quality equipment to begin with, those items can last longer than that. But KFIX uses an objective metric. If a system reach a particular age, then it automatically kind of gets classified a certain way. KFIX, just to go through the priorities, you've heard this a couple of times: priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're actually going to take a look at your all's existing district facility plan, and we'll see these. But priority 1 and 2 are basically educational projects directly related to your school centers, whether those are renovations, additions, new buildings even. The only difference between priority 1 and priority 2 is the anticipated year that you're going to begin that project. As mentioned earlier, DFP is a 4-year document. So the first 2 years are the first biennium, and the second 2 years are obviously the second biennium. Priority 1 projects would be the projects that you intend to initiate in the first 2 years of that 4-year document. And then priority 2 projects would fall into the year 3 and 4 and beyond. Priority 3 projects are non-educational additions or expansions, such as a gymnasium, an auditorium, those types of spaces. Priority 4 are support facilities like board offices, bus garages, central storage facilities. And then priority 5 are discretionary construction projects. Typically, 90% of the time, these are athletics projects. It's important to note, and I think it was stated, that priority 1 through 4 restricted funds can be used for those. In other words, bonded dollars. Priority 5 cannot use restricted dollars, and are typically come out of the general fund of the district to pursue those projects, with specific exceptions to that. So again, priority 1, just listing down there below in the box, those are items that have reached their life expectancy. Again, may or may not actually be in poor condition and need to be replaced, but per KFIX have reached their life expectancy and should be evaluated and considered further. Priority 2 are 1 to 2 years. Those are going to fall into that category. And then other priorities are 3-4 years and beyond. So we're going to get into each facility, and you'll note that each page that we come to is actually a facility and a year of construction. So at Whitley City Elementary, it's going to be pretty straightforward because everything is the same year, 2004. There's only one item that's actually reached its life expectancy on that particular facility, and that has to do with some branch wiring, which is electrically related as far as devices, wiring and connections to that. So you'll see a total cost that KFIX applies to that of $135,511 for Whitley City. This one's pretty straightforward. As we get into some of the other ones, you'll note that it gets a little more complex with a lot more systems and a lot more additions. The other item that we evaluate is the program, as mentioned, relative to the KDE model program. So this elementary school is constructed in 2004, has no additions currently. It serves grades preschool through 5, and the current enrollment is 527. I will note that that is based on the 2019 SAR report. That's the last report that was produced and KDE has access to prior to the pandemic, and they have kind of disqualified or aren't using the 2020 enrollment numbers because they were so out of whack due to the pandemic. So the purposes of the evaluation, a model program was 550 students. So that's the KDE model program for an elementary school that was utilized to evaluate this program. And we have no program deficiencies because it is a relatively new facility. The number of students fits within the capacity of that particular school. Pine Knot Elementary Building 1, which is the primary and the preschool facility, as you'll note that there's 3 eras, 3 dates for construction: 1960, 1994, and 1995. This slide shows the 1960 portion of the building. So there are, on the right-hand side, you'll see a wide variety of items that KFIX has identified that requires some work, including water, emergency power, branch wiring, exhaust ventilation, sanitary waste, domestic water, site development, pedestrian paving, parking, roadways, interior finishes, ceilings, walls, doors, fittings, fixed furnishings, fittings, and foundations. So the total cost of that, based on KFIX, is $923,105. 1994, we've got a lot of the same elements, a little bit less costs associated with those as we go down through there, and I won't read each one off, but in the 1994 piece, there's about $211,000 worth of renovations that have been assessed. And then the 1995 element or addition has a smaller list of items. There's some exit and emergency lighting systems, fire alarm, intercom and paging, branch wiring associated with electrical, sanitary waste, domestic water, and controls and instrumentation. And controls and instrumentation is directly related to the HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning for the facility with regards to the building automation system, BAS. So in the 1995, there was $336,547 worth of assessed renovations. And then again, the program was evaluated. The current enrollment as of 2019 was approximately 443 students. And so the purposes of this evaluation, it was compared to a 450 student elementary school. There was one deficiency noted, and that was a special education classroom at 825 square feet. However, you'll note that there is not a cost over here, and that's because the existing building is already larger than the KDE model program allows you to build. The existing building is 62,344 versus 52,622 square feet, gross square feet, that KDE says that this building should be. And so that would mean as we look at that space, we would identify that being an interior renovation to accommodate that program deficiency. So before I move on, this is a good summary. So we've got the 1960, 1994, and the 1995 section, those numbers pulled forward. So the total cost of renovation at Pine Knot Elementary Building 1, the primary and preschool, is $1,470,687. Moving on to Pine Knot number 2, which is the elementary school. It was constructed in 1989. Again, there are a lot of items here listed and associated cost. So we've got some garbage, and Katie classifies that as kind of a collection system, and then the outdoor space associated with that. Site development, pedestrian pavings and roadways, kitchen, ceilings, floor finishes, wall finishes, interior doors, fittings, which cover plumbing fixtures and miscellaneous items, exterior doors, exterior windows, water supply, emergency power, exit and emergency lighting system, fire alarm, clock and program systems, intercom and paging, electrical service and distribution, sanitary waste, domestic water distribution, and branch wiring. So within the 1989 section of Pine Knot Elementary Building 2, we have $5,164,588 assessed as renovation costs for those specific systems. We also, again, evaluated this building based on the KDE model program. Currently serves grades 3 through 5. Has 358 students based on 2019 SAR, and was compared against a 400-student elementary school as a model program. So KDE has 16 classrooms for that population, and there are currently 18. There's no classroom designated as a preschool, but the preschool is actually in the other facility. And then custodial receiving is designated as a bit small, 111 square feet versus 250 square feet based on the KDE model program. Similar to the other facility, though, the existing building is oversized relative to what KDE would tell you. So 57,550 versus 49,216. So the total facility cost for Pine Knot number 2 is $5,164,588. McCreary County Middle School, this building had quite a few items that were listed, and at a pretty good substantial cost just based on the larger size of this particular facility. Again, it was constructed in 1993. There was only one date for construction. As far as items listed, there are exterior elements related to garbage, site development, pedestrian pavements, roadways, kitchen, ceilings, floor finishes, wall finishes, interior doors, fittings, exterior doors, exterior windows was a rather large item that was identified. Water supply, electrical related to branch wiring, also service and distribution of electrical. HVAC items included exhaust ventilation system, domestic water distribution, and then now we're into plumbing. Plumbing fixtures, fire alarm systems, intercom and paging, sanitary waste, and clock and program system. So the total renovation cost based on that assessment is $6,467,490. Also, the middle school was evaluated against the KDE model program. The current student enrollment as of 2019 was 647. So we used a number of 650 students to evaluate that against. So it actually appears that we have adequate classroom. Actually, excuse me, no, we are deficient one standard classroom at 750 square feet. We are deficient 4 science classrooms at 1,000 square feet each. The band and vocal music classroom is smaller than KDE would recommend it being. The cafeteria is also quite a bit smaller than KDE recommends it being. KDE suggests a size of 4,600 square feet, and the existing is 2,700. And then we are missing a custodial receiving space. So all those deficiencies as far as the square footage were calculated. KDE has a number, a cost per square foot that they utilize for it, and it's different for elementary schools, middle schools, high school, and support facilities, and they tell us what that is. So for a middle school, that number is $246.09 a square foot. So that number times the deficiency as far as the square footage actually equals this program deficiency of $5,459,039. That combined with the renovation cost that were identified creates a deficiency or a need at this particular facility of $11,926,529. At McCreary County High School, there were two dates of construction, 1978 and 2008. The slide that's up presently is the 1978 era. And again, we had quite a few items related to water supply, electrical branch wiring, electrical service and distribution, domestic water heaters, site-related items related to garbage, site development, pedestrian pavements, parking, roadways, fittings, exterior doors, exterior windows, and sanitary waste. So there was a 1978 section replacement repair cost of $4,918,431. In the 2008, because it is relatively new, only 12, 13 years old at this point in time, there are no current needs that fall within that minimum 15-year time frame. As far as program deficiencies, we evaluated this there as of the 2019 SAR report. Enrollment was 774 students. We compared that to the KDE model program for an 800 student high school facility. The building is deficient 2 standard classrooms to serve that population, 1 computer classroom, and again, a custodial receiving space. Similar to the other facilities that we were looking at, the existing building, however, is adequately sized per KDE and doesn't qualify for an addition. So as we look at creating a DFP, we would potentially be looking for spaces within the existing building to renovate to address those programmatic deficiencies. And as we move out of the school centers, we do have some information on a few of the support facilities. The first one being the McCreary Central Office Building. We have some needs at that particular location, including water, site items related to pedestrian pavements, parking, roadways, exterior doors and exterior windows, exit and emergency lighting systems, electrical branch wiring, electrical service and distribution, and sanitary waste and domestic water. So there's about $193,867 worth of need at that particular facility. At the bus garage, the list is a bit longer. The original building was constructed in 1965. So there are a longer list of needs, some of which are related to finishes, some of which are related to site, roofing, doors, exterior doors and exterior windows, site lighting, storm and sanitary sewer, water, electrical items, HVAC, storm drainage, and sanitary waste and domestic water. So there's a need at that particular facility of $354,130. So this is a summary of those different facilities that we looked at, including the school centers and then the 2 support facilities that were included in this evaluation. And you'll see that the district need, which is an important number based on what we just walked through, is $24,163,743. As we develop the DFP, I will tell you that that number will change as we identify the approach to identify how we address each of those needs. This is the number that as we look to develop the DFP, it will be the district facility need, which is the number that goes into the formula to establish some of the funding that the state provides. So that difference between the district facility need and your bonding potential is the unmet need that Kelly was referring to. And again, that number will go up and down as we look at developing the DFP. It's important that we accurately identify that number, and we adequately create that number and make sure we've got all the needs caught within that, so that the district has as much access to state funding as is possible. So that concludes the presentation, and I will quit sharing my screen. And if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Randy, I would just make an observation if that's okay. I think that you did a really nice job of leading us through that, and you did a good job of explaining at the outset that the KFIX system, and when the state looks at this classification, it's very much tied into the age of various components and facilities and so on. And so where our facilities have been very well maintained, just because they fall in one of those categories, doesn't necessarily mean that it's more of based on age. And so that's advantageous for us in that we can report that need to the state, and that's what they want us to report, and it helps us out with our offers of assistance, while the more subjective piece of it of evaluating the state of our facilities is actually better than the unmet need, if that makes sense. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did, and that's exactly right. The KFIX system is objective in that it identifies a system or a piece of equipment or an element as a need once it reaches its expected life based on what it has built into its program. For instance, if the boiler has a 30-year life expectancy and it's older than that, that doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be replaced, and that it could be in very good working order based on the level of maintenance that you all have been doing over the course of the life of that particular piece of equipment. Thank you for pointing that out. That was very good. Are there any other questions? If not, the only other thing that I kind of wanted to run through, just so you guys can become familiar with the document, is the 2017 DFP, which is the current DFP for the district. I'm going to share my screen again. You all should be seeing a document that is a black and white document. It has a lot of text on it. So this is, thank you for the thumbs up, Mr. Keith. I see that. This is the current district facility plan for McCreary County Schools. Again, it was approved in August of 2017, and it's due again in August of 2021, and that's exactly what we are working on, and the schedule that we plan to have this on the state board agenda at their August board meeting. They meet every 2 months. They meet in April, they meet again in June, and they will meet again in August. And you have to have this completed and submitted to them completely 45 days prior to them actually meeting. Just FYI, if you were going to be on the June meeting, you'd have to have your information due by April the 18th, I think the date is. So this being on the August meeting, we plan to have it completed sometime in late May, early June. It gives us a little bit of a buffer to meet that schedule. So every DFP is organized the same way. You've got your plan of school organization, which in 2017, you are looking at actually changing that, moving 6th grade to the middle school and making some modifications to your elementary. So your current plan was item number 1, and then your long-range plan was actually item number 2 here. The next section is your school center. So this lists every school center. The high school, I understand the academy no longer exists and has been distributed to the high school and the middle school. You've got the middle school, and then you've got the elementary school, Pine Knot Primary, Pine Knot Intermediate, and Whitley City Elementary. Again, in 2017, there was some transitions being made to those to kind of get things organized to the point that they are currently. In this document, we're going to get into the priority 1, 2s, and 3s. As I mentioned, priority 1 projects are directly related to school centers and are intended to be undertaken by the district within the first 2 years of the 4-year plan. So in 2017, one of the priorities was middle school renovation and constructing an addition to satisfy some of the program deficiencies that you see here, including a band room addition, a classroom, science labs, and technology area. So some of the same deficiencies that are currently being noted are being repeated now. Pine Knot Primary School, new roofing, that was actually taken care of. There was some renovations at McCreary County High School, including roof replacement. That was also has been taken care of. So part of our job will be actually going through this document and making sure that we've documented everything that's being taken care of. So that was priority 1 projects. Priority 2 projects, and we're in the 2C here, are projects that were intended to be in the year 3, 4, or beyond, based on the conversation at that point in time. So Pine Knot Primary School, there was some renovation work there identified. Pine Knot Intermediate, renovation and some additions identified to satisfy that program. McCreary Central High School, renovations and a welding addition that was identified. And so that concludes the school centers. And then you all had 0 priority 3 projects. And just as a reminder, that's related to non-academic spaces associated with school centers, like gymnasiums, media centers, cafeterias, kitchens. Priority 4 projects are support facilities projects. So there was a renovation of the board office that was identified. There was some renovation at the maintenance building that was identified, and there was actually a note about constructing a new bus garage to address the bus garage building. And just a note, we'll capture everything in this document. Now, that does not mean that the district will strive to complete everything, because even in 2017, there was a district need of $26,163,978. You just heard Kelly say that you all currently have a bonding capacity of 7.8, and that might go up in a couple of years, but not nearly enough to address that need. And that's typical for every school district. Most every school district in the state of Kentucky is they have a larger need than they have bonding capacity for, which is that unmet need. So that's where it becomes important to identify priority 1 projects for this group to think about that. And then ultimately the board will make those final decisions about moving forward with the project. Then there were some discretionary projects, some things that fell out of the confines of the KDE model program related to each of the school centers. And then there were some additional items related to Access Road, Keene, and then an indoor practice athletic facility that kind of fell on this as a wish list kind of thing. So that is your all's current district facility plan from 2017. And we, as a group, you all specifically guiding and shaping this, we will create a new DFP that is in this very same format, but obviously is going to be updated to reflect the changes to facilities that you all have experienced in the last 4 years. And this group will determine the priorities that need to be identified in priority 1. So I'm open to answer any questions that I can, either about the architectural engineering assessment report and or the current DFP.
Randy, this is Tim Frills. Is this can we get a copy of this? Can this be emailed to us or mailed to us? All these summaries and reports that you have?
Yes, I will email these to Clint, if that's okay with Clint, and he can distribute to the LPC group. I think he has everybody's email as a group.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I will send those out in the morning.
Are there any other questions? If not, I really appreciate your all's time this evening. And I know there was quite a bit of information thrown at you with regards to the video, Kelly's information about the bonding, and then both the architectural engineering assessment and the current DFP. And again, when we meet again, we will be reviewing the KDE presentation part 2 that has more district-specific information related to student enrollment, projected future enrollment, demographics within the county, and some other good pieces of information that I think you all will find very useful and very informative as you all discuss the DFP.
Well, Randy, we certainly appreciate it. Like you said, a lot of information tonight, but I look forward to consuming it, and we'll get that information out to you committee members. And if you have questions, Clint and I will do our best to answer them. And if you need what we can't answer, we'll certainly reach out to others. Appreciate Kelly's presentation. We will have a meeting again in a week, as Randy alluded to. That will be on March 15th at 5:30, and I believe that Clint will get a link for another Teams meeting. Is that correct, Clint?
Yes, I'll be getting with Ms. Privet, and we'll get a link together. We'll have a public forum and an LPC meeting at 5:30 on the 15th.
Very good, and I appreciate Ms. Privet volunteering to chair this committee, and I appreciate Clint volunteering to be the vice chair, and I appreciate everyone else. I appreciate your time. It is a time investment, and I know that this isn't for so many of you, this isn't the only thing you do in service to children. So I really appreciate not only your commitment to this committee and for this district facility plan, but also all that you do for our kids. And so without further ado, we've reached adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Key.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. And so I believe the ayes have it. And again, my sincere thanks. Randy did a great job facilitating. Appreciate everyone's contributions. and look forward to seeing you in a week. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks all.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.